That was all.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to a board meeting of the Hartford School District on March the 17th, 2025. Do we need to do the agenda thing first?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just go ahead with this one? He's yelling at me and I haven't a clue what he's yelling at me about.
No, yeah.
I'm going to go straight into that, okay? And if I'm wrong, somebody will surely let me know. Okay. We're going to move into executive session. I move that the premature general public knowledge regarding the superintendent's contract clearly places the board at a substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing the negotiation strategy as if it discusses the superintendent's contract in public. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the motion does pass. Now I move to enter into executive session for the purpose of appointment, employment, or evaluation of a public officer or employee per VSA 313A3. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And we will now go into executive session.
Zoom. There it is. And it's displaying everything that's on that screen. So if I bring my mouse over and wave around, if that's in the recording. Blah, 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 blah. So we go back here, and I unmute myself. We've been playing around with captions. Hello, everyone in the world there. This is only a test. We're just testing the audio system. The meeting is not back. We're just going over how this works and the live captioning system. And I'm talking enough so that our live captions will take up the space that they take up. They take 4 lines like that. If you ever want to move them around, you can grab them and move them. So my mouse is on the other screen. Okay, everyone, thanks for listening. I'm going to mute myself again. And you can do Alt-A.
Oh, for you?
Yeah. There's some cool key commands, which I wrote down in a document. Alt-A mutes, Alt-F full screen. Escape will get you out of full screen. F1 and F2 can change the view up here.
Now wait, so do we need to be doing that game, or can we just do Alt-A over and over?
Yeah, you can. I think there's something kind of funky about it. So you have to select Zoom. So I got to bring my mouse over there. You might be able to select this, but let's find out. Let's do Alt-A. Yeah, it's still, that's.
It's still there, okay.
Yeah. Oops, no, gosh, yeah. And, yeah, it's very tempting to grab things up here. They're actually over here.
Oh.
They're actually on the other side.
They're trying to expand to go towards performance. Yes, however.
Yes.
Localized elementary, semi-regional, middle school, regional excellence.
Check with my undergrad in Boston.
Yeah. Check with
Boston Public Schools and work with Boston Public Schools.
We came out of executive session at 6:20. There was no action taken, and so we would now like to open the meeting for the community forum. And I'm going to turn it over to Rick.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, everybody, for joining us here today for our community forum. The structure will look like this. Jody is going to deliver a short presentation for us, and then Chuck's going to come up and moderate a Q&A session. Afterwards, we'd appreciate your feedback. If you are able to complete a digital form for us, that would be great. It'll help with the tabulation of the data. We have QR codes up here on the wall, and there is access to the guest Wi-Fi. We also have a link on the Hartford School District's website, hsdvt.com. It's at the top if you're able to go there and complete the form. If you prefer a paper copy, we have them in the folder in the back with some pens, and you can bring them up to me after the meeting. So I would like to start by introducing our finalists for the night, Jody Stewart-Ruck.
I'm going to bring this closer. Is that loud enough? Awesome. Hi, I am Jody Stewart-Ruck. Thank you so much for having me. I've had an excellent day here visiting each one of the schools and getting to meet a whole bunch of the community. So like Rick said, I just have a couple short slides that I think gives you my basic background, and then I'll open it up to question and answer. So just a little bit about who I am. I currently live in Middletown Springs, Vermont. That's about a half an hour south of Rutland. My husband is a teacher as well. We have 3 kids in our house. They're in 1st, 6th, and 8th grades. So I live in a circus and like it that way. I am the assistant superintendent at Mill River Schools. I have been in that district for the last 12 years. I've been serving in the role of assistant superintendent for 3 years now. So some of my professional background, as I said, I have been at Mill River for 12 years. In that time, I have gotten the benefit of getting to work in a variety of roles. So at the high school level, I served as Dean of Students. In the district level, I was Director of Personalized Learning during the changeover to proficiency-based learning in the state, where I really helped all of our schools navigate that. I was the Director of Curriculum, and am currently the Director of Curriculum. That's just been rolled into the Assistant Superintendent title. And I also served as the principal of Shrewsbury Mountain School, which is a small elementary school, pre-K through 6th grade. Before that, for almost 10 years, I left right when I was having my second child. I worked in New York City public schools. So I started off as a middle school social studies teacher, worked in 2 different middle schools teaching conflict resolution, social studies, and civil law. And then I moved on to a expeditionary learning outward bound school in the South Bronx, where I served as an assistant principal at the high school level. I thought it was important to share with the community some of my core values, the things that are most important to me in my service of students. The first thing is always putting what is best for kids first in every decision that is made, even when it is hard or there's different ideas about what is best for kids, really being able to sit down and navigate to help have a collaborative conversation about how we are going to best serve students. Integrity, I strongly believe in serving with honesty, in always being open and willing to explain my thinking about anything and have my mind changed if somebody has better information than I have, but being upfront and honest about who I am, what I'm thinking, and why I do things. Equity is very important to me. I've served as the director of equity for my district for the last 8 years. That includes a 6-year equity plan, serving as the leader of our equity committee, acting as Title IX coordinator. I oversee all of HHB work, helping our district with an equity overlay tool to look at the curriculum we teach from an equity lens. It is an important piece of my work. Empathy in all ways for everyone. I do not believe that people learn through being shamed, including grown-ups or kids. And so I think that all people in a community and in a system need to be treated as valued members of that community and seen for all of their good pieces and be allowed to be humans. So when I mess something up, I will openly own that I messed something up, because I think it's important that students see that at every level of life, we are still going to make mistakes, have to own them and have to learn from it. And I also want every single student that I ever work with to know that there's space for them to be cared about, truly and deeply. And collaboration. I do not think I'm the smartest person in any room. And I don't think I've ever made a decision alone that couldn't be better made in a group. And so it's really important to me to make collaborative decisions and then again speak openly about the process, about why and what we're doing. I got my kids to help with this because I was like, what am I like? And then I took out all the mean words. So if I had to describe who I am, I'm very high energy. I'm very direct. I love to learn. There is nothing more exciting to me than having my mind changed. Like, truly and deeply, if you can make me think a different thing, I get like so excited. The high energy comes in and I clap. I'm a really big systems thinker. I love to understand all of the pieces of why social systems work. So I'm the kind of person, like my son is the kind of person to take apart a VCR just for fun. I am the kind of person that likes to understand all the pieces of a people system. And I will go do any piece of that system and help out and ask questions until I understand the entire thing. I can be really silly. I am a joker. I am well known in my current middle school for being willing to do the TikTok dances on camera, to the endless embarrassment of my two middle school age children. And I am tenacious. I do not give up when things get hard. I take a deep breath. I show up the next day. I take a deep breath again if needed, and I keep showing up the next day. Some of my areas of professional expertise include equity, agency, and HHB prevention. School safety and threat management is an area that I am always trying to learn and do more in. I think it's unfortunately really important for a central office administrator to be as near to an expert as we can on that at this day and age. Curriculum coordination, grant writing and management, instructional leadership and supervision. I have been blessed to be a mentor for about 10 instructional leaders so far in my career. I became a school administrator at 29, so I've had a little bit of time to do that. I'm 46 now. See, full-on answers. MTSS and student supports, community relations and outreach is something that I think you cannot be a school leader without really putting as a piece of your area of expertise and being willing to constantly learn and do more in. Like I said, bureaucracy and systems are my jam. Data-driven practices and Title IX related equity work. So, you know, I just think it's important that you know at the core what I do and who I am. I will always put kids first. I will have any conversation with anybody. If you stop me in the middle of the supermarket, my 7-year-old might put 5 different sugar cereals into the cart while we're talking and then argue with me while I'm taken back out. But if you're willing to engage in that at the same time, I will have a conversation with you anytime. I'm willing to look back at my practice, admit when I'm wrong, make a new plan. I'm willing to grow. I believe in being like just another piece of a community as a leader. I think being a leader to me means that you are a responsible caregiver. So if the person chosen as your superintendent it's not about positional authority, it's about entrusting your kids' care to somebody, and that needs to be at the core of all of our jobs, but especially a superintendent has the care of all of the educators and the kids, and so they have to be willing to put their whole heart in it. And now I'll take any questions.
Okay, great. Great, Jody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. My name's Chuck Worcester. I'm the school district moderator. This is going to be relatively informal, I think. It's just a chance for us to ask questions of Jody and have some conversation. And so depending on how many questions there are and how many people come forward will sort of dictate kind of the flow here. So I'd love to start off with make sure everybody who's here and online has a chance to ask at least one question first, and then we can come back around and have second questions or follow-ups or as people like. So does anybody want to step?
Can you put your microphone a little bit closer?
I'm not sure if it's working or if it's just not close enough.
Wow, I'm going to balance it on here.
Give it a test, 2, 3.
It's clicking.
It is working, but.
I got a slouch
You
here.
can take it off and hold it.
Oh, there we go. Innovative right there. Problem solver. Okay, great. Sorry about that. My hope that this can be relatively informal, and so what I encourage people to do is come forward, ask a question, and then if there's time, we can do second round or more in-depth follow-ups, whatever people would like to do. So does anybody have questions for Jody here as we get started? And for folks who are online, you can raise your hand on, I guess we're on Zoom, right? And I'll be notified so that we can hear you. But if you do want to ask a question, come on up to the microphone so that the folks at home can hear you, unlike me, apparently. All right, Tim, breaking the ice here. Excellent.
Welcome. Jody's okay?
Yes, please.
Welcome, Jody, to Hartford.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Ferriel. I've been in the community for a long time and on the board for quite a while as well. And I guess the question I have for you is somewhat related to this concept of how we achieve, best practices and innovation in schools. I expect part of that is sort of the interface with the school board, but then what I've sort of struggled with a little bit in this community is how we engage the rest of the community in having those conversations about innovation in schools, and just wanted you to sort of speak to that.
So I think anytime I'm communicating with the community, I'm expecting that I need to communicate in multiple venues and multiple times, because people lead really busy lives. And so I need to be open to having those conversations in places and times that are accessible to the community. I think that our schools are doing a lot of innovative things. I saw a lot of innovative things at Hartford as I took my tours today. So to make my answer a little bit more specific, I'm going to speak to some of the great things that I saw today and how I would communicate those out to the community. So, for example, in the Tech Center, I saw the ways in which the Tech Center was able to use dual enrollment to increase students' access to college-based credits. So if I wanted to share that innovation and the way that they were making the most out of this state-run funding for area students, I would think about asking caregivers and kids if, when they successfully completed one of those programs, we could use social media to write a quick bio about their success and post their photo onto district and tech center and high school site.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Tim. Anybody else have a question?
Can you hear me? Okay. My name's Erica Fallon. I have 5 kids in the Hartford School District. As a parent, I deeply appreciate the knowledge, experience, and professionalism that our district teachers bring to the classroom each day. However, I often feel a sense of disconnect between what the teachers experience in the classrooms and the messaging from administrators and sometimes the district as a whole. As superintendent, how will you ensure that teachers' concerns about the direction of academics are heard, acknowledged, and addressed? Thank you.
So, you know, I'd be able to better answer this if I had specifics. I'm such a concrete person, but let me talk about some things in general. So I do think that a superintendent's role can be more effective by having a proactive relationship with the teachers union and having regular weekly meetings where the union feels like they can come in and share any teacher concern with the superintendent. I think that a leadership, I do think that the leaders that I met with today really did speak to some of the challenges in the schools. I think coming into a new community, I'd want to be in schools as much as I could to see those as well. And I think that the core way to really address any discrepancies in perception about obstacles between the classroom educators and the instructional leaders is to sit down together and make goals for the school that are based on those obstacles. So if what we're speaking about specifically is we wish we had more rigor in this specific grade, then to sit down with that entire grade level of teachers and say, okay, what is rigor to you? What does it look like? And how can we collaboratively work on increasing rigor, and how do we measure that? If the concern is a behavioral thing, sitting down and saying what specifically is the obstacle and how do we work together as problem solvers to address that?
Great. Who else has a question for Jody? Anybody coming in online? Okay. We're holding. I'll ask you one, Jody, while I'm waiting for someone else to come forward. You mentioned working at an experiential school in the Bronx.
Yes.
What insights or lessons did you learn there that you've been able to kind of carry back into more of a conventional classroom or school?
Yeah. So a lot of the facets of that school are similar to some of the things that our kids inherently have, which are access to the outdoors, which was not, we had to work a little harder in the South Bronx to get our kids out into the woods. Some things that I think hold true of any school, which is that kids rise to the expectations you set for them, and that all kids can succeed and do great things. My biggest accomplishment in my years at that school are the amount of students who became educators. And I think that always speaks to something going right if they want to replicate that experience that they had. And so, at one of the alumni get-togethers, I think it was like a 5-year graduation for one of the classes, I asked about that, and kids said, well, we really enjoyed, the learning was fun. And I said, what made the learning fun? And they said, well, so they're the experiential pieces, right? Kids enjoy learning that involves getting up and moving around and being inquisitive and experimenting. And it was the connection between subject areas and to the outside world. And it was the ability to interact with meaningful audiences for projects. And so those are things that I think can and do happen all over. I saw multiple ways in which all of those facets were happening at all of the schools that we visited today. Yeah.
Patrick Gordon. I'm an educator, principal down in Sunapee, New Hampshire, and a parent in town. And my question is multifaceted. I'm wondering about your experiences around large-scale projects. It's no secret that we will be engaging in a fairly large-scale project at the high school, but also there was a bond last year around building improvement safety and some of those other very important delayed refurbishment of the facilities. So I'm wondering about your experience doing that, but I'm also wondering about your experiencing communicating that, organizing that, getting the message out there, because as a taxpayer parent, I feel very disconnected from the bond in particular. I heard about money that was spent, but I didn't understand how we came to that resolution.
Okay, great. So I've worked on a central office team for the last 4 years, and we have had multiple major capital projects and unanticipated events like PCB issues to navigate together. So I have some experience. I'm not an operations manager, so I don't have a lot of that experience. But what I do know and feel really confident in, just in the little bit of experience I have here, is that with looming challenges to this district, I personally have a lot of faith in the operations department and the business department having already started to really clearly plan out what is going to happen next. So I was asking all kinds of questions down to the nitty-gritty, because I'm such a systems thinker today, about what about this, what about that? And the answers I got were, we are working on a plan. We feel confident in this plan. What we need from the next superintendent is somebody who can really work on the communications of that plan and the student experience. And I think that's true. So, my experience in communicating is communicate not just the what, but the why. So, this event happened. These are the pieces that we have control over, and this is the piece that we don't have control over. Communicating that we are doing what we need to do to take care of kids in the most fiscally responsible way, and being really open with, going to a board meeting and saying, these are the 3 options, this is the one we chose because, helps the community understand. I think it's true of all people that if you have the story, it's easier to understand it. And if you don't have the story, it's easier to make up a story in your head. And so for that reason, I tend to like to tell as much of the story as I can in my professional practice without putting my district at any, and sometimes we just can't tell the full story as school administrators, but whenever I can tell the story, I like to tell the full story.
Yes, next question.
So you already touched a little bit on your equity work in your past districts, and I'm wondering if you could expand on that.
Sure. So I think it's very important that we understand that the lived experience of students from historically marginalized groups in Vermont can feel in many ways isolating unless we are explicitly thinking about ways to make it not feel isolating in all of the work that we plan in our district. I think that has to be thoughtfully done when we look around our school spaces. Who is represented? Are all of our students represented? I think it has to happen in our education, making sure that the books that we're choosing have people that represent all of the caregivers and the students in our schools. I think we need to work really hard, and it's especially, it gets harder every year to empower our educators to feel comfortable having critical dialogues in a way that allows students to really make meaning about the world around them, but following a line where it doesn't make other students really uncomfortable in the classroom. And that's a really specific skill that takes, it's really hard, but it has to happen so that we can teach all of our students how to be global citizens. Because what I want for every single kid that I work with is for them to be able to be comfortable in every single one of our schools, feel like they're wanted and loved here, and also be able to go anywhere in the world and feel like they have all of the cultural knowledge about diversity to interact with people that they haven't met yet from all different belief systems and cultures.
Other questions? Oh, we do, okay. Great, yeah, Jacob, how do you want to, can they just be heard in the room here?
I unmuted Houston family.
Okay, looks like the Houston family, if you can hear this, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, my name's Amber Houston. I'm a parent of 2 children at Dothan Brook School. And my question sort of follows up on the last one, but I'm wondering if you're familiar with Hartford's gender inclusivity policy. And given the current changes and uncertainty at the federal level, I'm wondering how you would respond within the district to challenges to Hartford's current policy.
Thanks. So I cannot say that I have a lot of knowledge about Hartford's gender inclusive policy. I can speak to you about what I'm currently doing in my own practice with my own procedure and policy. So in my own practice, we have policy. We have an equity policy and a gender inclusive policy that follow the VSBA models. So I have worked with our district representation to make sure that we are allowed to keep those at the policy level, and we currently are. And then I'm also doing a review to make sure that all of our procedures both protect the district, but most importantly, protect students. So we do have, a gender and name procedure at our secondary level. I just had, again, district lawyers review that to make sure that everything was in alignment with both state and federal policy. And we'll do that as many times as we can because policy is changing very quickly. But at the end of the day, the practice needs to be doing everything we can to make sure we're taking care of kids.
Who else has a question for Jody?
Thanks for being here tonight, Jody. I'm Colin Butler. I'd like to make, I think, 4 observations and then give you a chance to react to one or all of them.
Okay, I'm ready.
I suspect you may want to just choose one for focusing. I think right now, this isn't necessarily just Hartford. I think it's very difficult for the citizens of the district to focus on anything school-related other than the cost of school and what the tax rate's going to be and what the impact of that tax rate's going to be on me personally. And I think that happens at the exclusion of the citizens paying any attention to what schools are actually doing to educate their kids. So, you might see some of that in the small audience here this evening, that people just feel frustrated that they've got very little control over what's going on. Think about that. Think about the potential loss of the Department of Education and what that means in terms of the guidance that that department has provided over the years and the funding that flows from them to local districts and what the loss of that is going to mean. Think about the governor's proposal to reorganize public education in Vermont and how that may impact us going forward, whether it's explicitly the process that he's recommending or some variation of it. And so I guess if I've got a question, it's how are you going to be, how are you prepared to deal with any or all of that, and what specifically do you think your role is in reacting to any of the observations I just leveled at you?
Well, first I run and hide. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So those are things that I think about every single day in my current practice, and things that I am going to think about no matter where I am next year, right? So my strategy has been to focus on what I know to be true at the moment. Right now, this month, this is what I know from the federal government and the state government. What do I think is if it's a greater than 50% chance of happening, I'm going to start planning a contingency plan for it. If it is not yet a greater than 50% chance of happening, I'm going to leave that because I have plenty of trouble on my plate already. When it comes to local budget, it is such a convoluted process that I have not found a lot of success in trying to explain the mechanisms, but I do think it's important to do so every single year just for the sake of transparency. I think that it's really important to point out to community members that our schools are the heart of a community, and they are also the place where our future neighbors, community members, doctors, auto mechanics, and everybody else important in our lives learns to be intelligent, lifelong learners and good people. Do you want that done well? Right? And to just point out the data. The data has shown federally, the money spent on a child's education has such a positive impact on their ability to be a lifelong earner and pay into the system. It makes so much more sense than providing a limited or a poor education and then the amount of money that must be spent to help that person later in life. Proactive actions in almost all areas at almost all times make sense. And public education is a proactive choice. When we put thoughtful money into it, what we do is we make our community stronger. I think that my role is to communicate the ways in which we are able to show whether funding is doing something, right? So that is where the data comes out. So if the community is trusting the district with so many millions of dollars to be able to say, yes, and here are all the data points to show that we are successful in our schools in helping to support our community of learners. I think that taking feedback and listening to people and hearing their concerns and then asking more questions to drill down further what their concerns are is important. Making sure that I'm listening first and then I'm listening again if I still don't think I get it. I think when it comes to the state and federal changes, my responsibility is to know as much as I can, think ahead, but not be reactive. Because I think that leaders in the community need to be balanced and thoughtful and grounded in their decision making.
Great. Who else has a question here? People are carefully thinking. To Colin's good three-parter.
This is just the one parter, I think. Hi, Scott Farnsworth. I don't know much about Mill River or the community. Could you help us to learn the difference between your community, your school system, the demographics of your area versus that of Hartford?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I think both districts are very similar in that they are small, cohesive, community-minded areas of Vermont, right? I'm just over Killington, so not that far. We figured out today we ski at the same places. I think, where we differ is my current community is much more rural. There are not a lot of community agencies to partner with. It is a smaller district, 788 students. The schools are further apart just because of that rural aspect of it. But, a lot of the same, like the capital pieces, the financial struggles, trying to work with the larger community on understanding all of the finances around schooling and trying to serve the entire community is with as clear communication as possible. All of those things are the same. And they're both great places. I love the Mill River community, and I love what I see at Hartford.
Who else has a question for Jody while we're gathered here? Mill River is multiple towns in one district, or is it?
Yes, so there are 4 elementary schools in 4 separate towns, and then 1 regional middle and high school.
Yes, please. Yeah, I think everyone's had a good chance to at least get one in, so please, yeah.
I'll throw you an education one because
Okay.
I'm always curious about this one right now. Science of reading, where are you at in terms of what you know? What do you believe in? Are you still stuck in the reading wars? Are you moving forward, ready to push our educational system towards brain-based learning?
So, about 5 years ago, I authorized the purchase of a huge curriculum that was chosen by a curricular work group that was, I won't name it, but I will say it was not within following the practices of the science of reading. And then about a year and a half later, the research came out. And I'm the one that went to the board and said, oh my gosh, I have to own this. We need to change our practice because when we know better, we have to do better because our business is serving kids. I believe in following data when the data is conclusive, right? Like I don't follow every single data trail like a mouse, but the data on the science of reading is relatively conclusive. And I believe that I'm not the expert on all the things. And my reading experts in my district were saying, we need to try a different path. And so I said, great, show me where we're going. And the reading specialists and some early adopters piloted a science of reading curriculum in my district and then pulled more educators in when they saw the data. And I then went back to the board and said, okay, we have done the research, we have done the trying. What I need to ask you for is $10,000 for different books. Because even though 5 years ago I asked you for more money, this is what happened, right? And part of that is owning a mistake. But I think it's really important because if you were to see Mill River's data, our literacy data is going like this. And that's not my work, that's the educator's work.
Anybody else have a second question, follow-up? Yep.
Our previous superintendent was not particularly active in school events. And I'm wondering if you would be more active and more participant in the schools themselves.
Sure. So like I said previously, I have 3 kids. If I were to be the superintendent here, I would want to move to live within the district so that I could manage my home life and my work life together. So that would also make it easier for me to be at school events, but I also just love being with kids. So, you know, if there needs to be an extra chaperone for something, even as middle school dance, like I like it. I will like to show up. It is my preference to be at school events because that's how I really get to know the community. I'm never gonna really get to know the community like this with a table between us. And I'll see you at the rock climbing gym, right?
Before I get to my question, I'm going to caution you that chaperoning a middle school child's dance is a very unwise idea.
The voice of experience.
My daughters would both confirm that. I wanted to ask you kind of just your thoughts around policy governance. We implemented that in this district a while ago, and with the thought that it would create a more dynamic kind of board interface with the district and that operation. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, whether you think that's true. And I can, if you want, the policy governance model is a John Carver model that basically suggests that boards are, effectively hands-off, and it's like an ends and means thing. So rather than getting into the nitty-gritty and, sweating details, it's more of a kind of an overlay view that, hey, you run it with your leadership team and your teachers, and that the board kind of like operates on a different plane, if you will. So that's kind of, if that's helpful for the background.
Yes, no, that is helpful. So I think that it's great when school board members are present within the schools, because they really get a big idea of what's in the schools. I also think that, you know, just in the same way that I am really careful to rely on expert educators for decision-making around teaching practices, because I think it can be really helpful when the decision makers are the ones that are the experts in the decisions and that those decisions most affect. I do think that board work and administrative work has to happen in conjunction with each other through, you know, open and careful communication. I think that it is helpful for a system when the board clearly knows what its work is. Just because it's already such an unwieldy volunteer opportunity that even just for the board's own sake, saying like, your job is evaluation of the superintendent and policy and finances, can just really help the board manage that incredible amount of work. And I think it also helps the leadership team to know where the board believes its role is, because, you know, like there's just so many layers to a school system that there's gonna be bleed over, but the more structure you can give it, the better.
Okay, looks like Amber, we have another one from you. We will unmute you here in a moment. And you're ready to go.
All right, thank you. Hello, it's Amber Houston again. I'm wondering, so we often hear about and talk about support for students, specifically who are struggling academically. I'm wondering how you would also address the needs of students who are academically strong and maybe working above their grade level. I'm wondering how you at the district level would support opportunities to accelerate or create opportunities for those students, especially in the face of limited resources.
Yes. So I think that, you know, at the district level, my role is really to support and look for resources for the building level leaders in doing that work, because it really is, you know, it's their schools, and I don't want to ever overstep. But some of the ways in my current practice, you know, working at a district level, curriculum level, that I try to address that in a area with really limited resources is really providing opportunities for teachers to consider planning in a really tiered model. So where there are always opportunities for enrichment or working at the grade band level above in any unit designed, as well as opportunities for extra practice or scaffolded skills for students who are still struggling, and asking that within curricular planning that those tiers, so the tier one instruction of everybody gets everything is always the core, and then there's planned activities above and planned activities that kids need a little bit extra, and just getting into the practice of that. I think it feels unwieldy at first, and then once educators start to kind of just get used to it, it doesn't have to be really hard to continue doing that. And then, you know, once you get into the further into the secondary model, I think it's really just about like supporting building administration and school counseling staff in creative scheduling and really maximizing what resources there are.
Who else has a question here? Anybody? Third round? And Isaac, Tim? Okay, looks like we have nobody else online at the moment, right? Okay. Well, I think Rick and Nancy, that might bring this section to a close. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck, for taking the time to be out here this evening, and thank you, Jody, for we've had a long day, and appreciate your energy and all of your answers. Everybody in the crowd, if you can take a moment and fill out the feedback survey, that would be fabulous. If you want to do it here, there's the QR codes, and there's paper copies in the back. If you're at home and could fill out the feedback survey online, get there by going to the district's website, hsdvt.com, hsdvt.com. I'd also like to remind everybody that we will be back here tomorrow night with our second finalist. So 6:30, if you could join us again, that would be terrific, or join us online. Thank you very, very much for being here, and I will turn it over to Nancy.
Okay, we'll be going back into executive session to finish up talking with our candidate here. So I find the right piece there. I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the superintendent's contract clearly places the board at a substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing its negotiation strategy if it discusses the superintendent's contract in public. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Thank you. The motion carries. And also, 1 VSA 313A3, we will be going in for appointment, employment, or evaluation of a public officer or employee. Again, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. And the motion carries. So,
All your help today. You were like full service, like tech support, catering,